Hello, welcome in to a brand new episode of A Bunch of Punts. We know it's been a while, but we're really excited to get back into it and bring you a cracking show. Football's back, and so are we. Joining me this week, I was going to say, boys, we had a full house of punts, but we've been ditched by Burnsy. So it's just the five of us. And I'm really excited about it. So in no particular order, Danzo, how you doing, pal?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yourself?
Yes, I'm good, mate. Lewis?
Very well. Excited to be back. Looking forward to this week's episode.
Absolutely. John?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. I'm looking forward to getting back talking about football, lead up to the season kicking off.
Good. And JK, back from spending time with the GOAT himself. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good.
All good. Well, like I say, football is back, and I'm really excited to carry on talking about it. We've spoken a lot about how the NFL is literally an all-year-round product, right? But July, this last month, has just been dead. There's just been nothing going on. But all of a sudden, we're back. We've got training camp going on. We've got player contracts being signed, players holding out, hard knocks kicking off. There's loads to talk about. So really great episode planned for everybody. And just before we do kick off, just a reminder really of our socials, which we know have been a little bit quiet the last couple of weeks or so, as we've had a bit of an off-season ourselves. But please be sure to check out the socials on TikTok, @bunchofunts, Instagram, @bunchofunts podcasts. And obviously, however you're listening to the podcast today, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube, please make sure you share the pod, give us a like, leave us a comment and subscribe as well. So we have got a lot to go through in today's show. Really excited. A couple of things we've been working on for a couple of weeks now, boys, isn't it? But just before we do that, I just wanted to check in and see how you all were. How's your summer's been? You're all good to go? Excited for football?
Yep, just get back literally 2 hours ago from a wee weekend break. So yeah, it was a good wee break. It was much needed, but mate, back to the grind now.
That's dedication to the course. That is an hour and a half. You're straight in the studio with the boys having a chat. Lewis, how you been, mate? You well?
Yeah, good. Me and John managed to enjoy a nice coffee in the what little summer we've had up here in Scotland on Friday there as well. So it was good. Managed to get A Bunch of Punts mug to him eventually, which he was delighted that he was parading it around the Starbucks that we were in. So it was good to see him and get a bit of sun up here in Scotland. But no, exciting. I know we've got a few things to talk about. Hopefully Jordan Love's the main one of the show, but yeah, excited.
Yeah, I know you've got a new jersey on there as well, mate.
New contract, new jersey.
Nice and fresh, yeah. We're not going to spend too much time on Jordan Love, to be fair, mate. We will touch on that shortly. John, how you doing, pal?
Yeah, all good, mate. I know Lewis is reminding me of that coffee because he paid for it. And he's obviously wanting to make a point that I don't get. So I'll get you one back, mate. Don't worry, I'll give you a shout at some point.
You really think go on the corporate card now?
That's it. I was getting disciplinaries now Monday, John.
And JK, mate, you've obviously had a nice week in the sun. You want to talk about that, or?
Yeah, got back an hour ago as well, same as Danzo. Sunning it up in Monaco for work, and yeah, as Lewis said, got to meet the GOAT for a second time. Had a bit of a good conversation with him. Mentioned the pod. He wished us all good luck. Asked him if he had any downtime. You know, he's always welcome to come on and join us. So planted the seed there. So let's see. Maybe the next couple of months we'll get him off Fox and on here.
Brilliant, mate. Well, we did say last time actually, and you bumped into. You've got to give him some sort of shout out. So heads up to you, mate. Well done. It's really good. Boys, I know it's been a couple of weeks now, but how buzzing are you that England didn't win the Euros?
Oh, over the moon.
Right, we can relax, we can breathe.
You know, I'm sure that's why the last pod got cancelled, because it was potentially going to be coming home. But
we were celebrating.
That's what it was. Yeah.
The goal kind of did go home, though, Smithy, didn't it? Given the fact that Spain have won it many more times than England have, so kind of did go home.
Hey, listen, mate, I'm not. I wasn't chirping about England, to be fair. You know, I was just as surprised as you were. We got to the final. To be honest with you, we had like one good game, I think, against the Netherlands, and the rest of it was.
I'm going to remind you, Smithy, that you were the only one in the giving it big licks when Scotland were getting absolutely thrashed off Germany in the opener. So what goes around comes around, mate.
Well, I did. Like I said to you, mate, they can take 3 points off him. They're not going to take your freedom, are they, boys? So. Right, before we get into the sort of main part of the show this evening, because that's going to take a big chunk of time, I'm really excited to it. There are some news bits I just want to sort of touch on. Because like I said, all of a sudden it's kicked off again, hasn't it, the season? We've got loads of stuff going on in training camp. There is some contract things happening with some QBs. I see left tackle from Detroit has also signed a contract this morning. But just a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Lewis, we've got to give you time to mate, to talk about Jordan Love. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Just give us let us know your thoughts on the greatest player in the league to sign his contract.
Yeah, no, listen, I'll keep it short and sweet because I think we could spend a bit of time on these types of discussions in the podcast today. So, not delighted. Obviously, his agent is very high profile. He's touted as being one of the best. He represents quite a lot of players across the league. Got him a fantastic deal. The more the details are coming out, it looks a lot more friendlier to the Packers as well in terms of cap space over the years. But it just shows you the difference between how an NFL contract works and the rest of sport, isn't it? Like, it's so complex, and whereas some people have got deals, if we look at tours as well, it's like almost no guaranteed money after the first year and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see how these deals actually work. So delighted that we've got it sorted. Didn't want any more of a holdout or a hold in, as I think they're referring to it now, if they turn up to camp but don't practice. But it was quite interesting to see that he was still working out with some receivers after practice and still throwing the ball and stuff like that as well. So absolutely over the moon. Hopefully it's Hall of Famer number 3.
Yeah, hopefully not. But look, I know we've chatted about privacy and my thoughts on Jordan Love and the Packers, but I think it's one of those. The Packers had to do it, didn't they? They didn't really have a choice in the matter. I did hear that training camp while he was sitting out was absolutely dreadful. I don't know who the backup was, but he wasn't doing very good. So he held all the cards, didn't he? And look, we're advocates on the show of players getting paid, aren't we? Hopefully it pays out for you. It makes the division much more competitive. But no, really good. Tua's obviously been paid as well. Danzo, what's your thoughts on that? Anything you want to go add or?
No, I think he was due. Everybody else from that class had really been paid. He's in and round about them as well. And to me, I've said it before, Tua needs to be showing a lot more to be justifying the kind of money he's got. But that's the QB market at the minute. It's all about timing, I think, for them. So he's come in at the right time, get a decent deal. He just needs to go and show those Dolphin fans what he can do now.
Yeah,
he was talking about showing them the money.
Yeah, he was. Well, that's some flex, to be fair to him. But, I mean, it is wild, isn't it? These contracts that it just sort of seems to be every time someone's getting paid, they're resetting the market and it has to be the top. And Jordan Love, he's clearly not the best QB in the league, is he? But he's being paid like it. And it is mad, really. Just moving on from player contracts, I want to get on to the main event. Hard Knocks has obviously been shown the last sort of couple of weeks or so. I know we had a brief chat about it before we come on air. Jake, I want to come to you as a Giants fan, mate. I know you've been busy touring the world with the GOAT, but have you had a chance to catch much of it? What's been your initial thoughts?
Just before you answer that, Jordan, sorry, please don't incriminate yourself as to where you're watching Hard Knocks.
Absolutely, mate. Only on legitimate sources. So, but yeah, I must admit, I've still got a couple of the most recent eps to watch. But I think, as you said, we spoke before we started recording. But I think it's went down really well because it's the first of its kind in that format. It's not an in-season, it's not a training camp. Like, we're actually behind the scenes here of what actually running an NFL franchise is actually like, leading up to the draft, key players like leaving. What I've enjoyed and actually a wee bit surprised about is how much they've spoken about their desire to get up in the draft and get a quarterback. Like, I think when we did a pod a few months ago, I said that how can you go and tell the world that you wanted Drake May when you're the guy you're paying $40 million to is coming back from an ACL. But I guess that shows I know nothing about TV. So, but no, it's been really good, actually. Really impressed.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it, and I think Hard Knocks have done a good thing to sort of reinvent themselves, haven't they? Because Lewis, you made the point that the training camp one has been going for like 20 seasons now, and it is fun. try to bring in the in-season one, which I'll be honest with you, there's so much to watch the NFL. It's hard to maybe watch that in mid-season. And it just showed a different light. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I hope the Bears don't run like the Giants because it's just terrifying. I generally feel like Joe Shane ain't got a clue what he's doing personally. It just seems to sort of be just a few names on the board and we'll see what happens. But Lewis, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree and disagree with what you said there. I think it does look like a shit show sometimes, but I think they need to keep some cards close to their chest, isn't they? They probably won't be showing you the parameters other than salary was the reason for drafting Drew Lock or Tyrod Taylor or anything like that. I think one of the real winners coming out of it has been Brian Daboll. Like, that just looks like a guy that I'd love to go for a pint with. Like, he just looks so much fun. And I don't know if you've seen one of the most recent ones where, like, they're obviously preparing for this draft and they've gave him like his birthday off and they FaceTime him from like the war room or the draft room, and he's in the pool with this big massive cigar. And his son, and he was like, "Don't worry, he's just put his cigar down," kind of thing. So no, I think he's came across really well. I think one part that I've also loved, without ruining it for anyone, is the pressure and how intense the interviews are with the quarterbacks, which it didn't seem to be like for the rest of the players that they can interviewed. So the fact that they gave them a play call, started talking about a different conversation completely 10 minutes later, and then was like, give me that play call again, and these guys can just recite it off. So we probably don't do these guys enough, give these guys enough credit, the actual mental aspect of the game in terms of how they can recall those plays and what that actually means put down on paper with an offense of 11 guys and what they're all meant to do at that particular time. So I've massively enjoyed it. It's been great.
Yeah, it's so true about that, like the QB position. You just, the IQ to play that position is just ridiculous. I mean, if they called out a play, I just wouldn't be able to recite the play, just the words. Let them know, try and draw it up on a board and try and like change coverage and all that type of stuff. But that's really good. I mean, I must admit, I'm excited for the Bears one. I've been seen a few clips from training and stuff. There's been some good stuff kicking around about that, so that's good. Just on training camp, John, I've got to get your thoughts, mate, on the battle, the QB battle going down between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and his tight calf, mate. What's your made of that?
Do you know what? It's good that there is a battle. From a Steelers fan point of view, you're sitting there thinking this is good. They're going to be competing with each other, and everything you've seen of Justin Fields so far looks like he's going to be pushing them all the way. So I still think Russell Wilson will start. I still think that Fields will slot in behind him, but it's just how quickly does he get that number one spot. It's been good to see. Maybe we don't need that other big wide receiver. We play one of them in wide receiver instead.
I'm interested to see where you're going to draft these guys in a moment, but I'm just happy to take my money off Burnsy when Fields takes that role, sort of week 6 or whatever it may be. Boys, there's loads more stuff that we can talk about, but I really want to crack on with the main reason for the pod this evening. I'm really, really excited about this. I think it's going to be an interesting task, just to sort of set up what it's going to look like. What we're going to try and attempt to do is almost redraft the QBs from 1 to 32, and we probably won't get through all 32 on tonight's pod. When we get to 20, see how it goes. But it's with the thought process. You're not drafting for a particular franchise or anything at all. You're basically in the seat of a GM, and you can draft any of the available QBs at this moment in time in particular order. And obviously, once a QB's gone off the board, you can't then draft that QB and stuff. And we'll go from sort of 1 to 20, and we'll see how we get on. But I don't know how you boys got on with your little bit of homework for this, but it's pretty interesting stuff. I think there's a few picks that are pretty easy to do, and you start getting into some interesting conversations. And just to sort of set the caveat on it, when we make our pick, this isn't about drafting just the best QBs in order, right? It's not about that. It's about taking on board everything that QB brings. So their age, their NFL career to date, their injury history, their contract situation. How would you draft them to sort of start a franchise over now? So to give you an example, you know Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, one of the best QBs still in the league, but would you really draft him now if you were starting over from scratch at the age of 40 with his history and his contract and stuff over, say, someone like CJ Stroud? Probably not. So that's the idea that we need to go through. And does that all make sense, boys? Yeah.
Perfect.
So we're going to go through in order. I've got a little randomizer here to sort of come up with a draft order. So I'm going to spin the wheel and we'll see who's going to go first, boys, just to sort of see how it's going around there for you. And we have JK is going to be picking first.
I love that wee sound effect there.
Let's give that another spin then. Here we go, boys. That'll be Smithy next.
Suspense is killing me here.
Danzo. Suspense. Ooh, what have we got now, boys? Just down to 2 more.
Mine's better than the green one.
I thought I was right in the middle there.
That's a nice. Is that yellow and black? Black and gold. The last 2 colours.
Yeah, black and gold and green and yellow. And then we've got
Well done,
John going last.
Are we doing this when we get to 5, it goes back to 1, or are we doing this
Yeah,
5,
basically,
2,
yeah.
2?
So
Right,
once John's had to go, then we'll go back to JK again, yeah. So the rules are, right, once you make your pick, we're going to lock that in as a bunch of punts draft order. We're going to debate it as much as you want. So, you know, Sleuth comes out with Jordan Love being like right up there. We can debate it all we want and stuff, but ultimately that will lock the pick in. And then we'll kind of go from there. Before we sort of start, boys, are we all just in agreement that like Mahomes is going to be number 1 overall pick? Should we just start from pick 2, or is anybody really debating that they might take Mahomes second or someone else first?
There shouldn't be.
Absolutely shouldn't be, but
No.
I see Lewis's face there. He hasn't got the first pick anyway, but
No, I just think that this is very open to interpretation, and there's some different ways to strategise. But listen, hey, I'm not giving anything away. I may have Mahomes at 5th.
Honestly.
I'm not the Giants.
So are we going to let JK pick Mahomes number 1 then, and just
Yeah.
that's what we're saying?
Waste
Yeah?
a pick.
Waste a
Thanks,
pick
guys.
almost,
Yeah.
really?
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Danzo, John, what's your views on that?
Yeah, he's my number 1, so
Yeah,
He's my number 1 as well. I think he's by
got to
far.
be. Lewis, you know, no joking aside, he's got to be number 1, right?
I'm just teasing. I think what you need to understand is I'm not giving anything away right now. This is important business.
He's taking
He
it
is
serious
just
now. That he's taking it serious. So look, we're going to lock in Mahomes at 1 because I just think this podcast would lose all credibility if we didn't do that. So
Yeah.
we're trying to grow our audience here, not lose the audience. So let's lock in Mahomes at number 1. So go with the number 2 overall pick. JK, over to you, mate. Who are you taking?
I am going to pick, with the second pick, Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Give us some thoughts then, mate. Go on. Give us a couple
So
of thoughts.
the first things people will say, he's been injured and blah, blah, blah. I think context is important with his injuries. You know, he was the first season where he done his ACL. He was playing again behind one of the worst offensive lines in the sport. So now they actually sorted that out. His second season, he's the only legit contender that can go with Mahomes. He's the only one that's proven that it's a 50-50 match whenever they play each other. So, yeah, for me, he's also cool as fuck. Like, who doesn't want that guy to be your face of the franchise? Like, seriously, you know, he's went bleach blonde now. He just rocks everything. So, yeah, I just love the guy. I think he's obviously super intelligent. Maybe more of like a traditional pocket passer type person, but I think he's still got the ability to use his legs. So yeah, number 2 pick for me.
I've got no arguments with that one.
Nope,
Boys, I don't know about you, but he wasn't my number 2, but I've got no arguments about him being number 2. Anyone else?
I've got a wee bit of a divisional bias, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not
Here we go.
either
Russell
there.
Wilson.
Yeah, they're not up there for me, those two, because I like to try and paint a narrative that both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrows aren't that good. But I think if I was being less biased, maybe I'd agree.
Okay, cool. Look, Joe Burrow, I think, is worthy of being right up there, isn't he, for everything that JK sort of said there. So let's move on to pick number 3. I'm going with Josh Allen for me. I just think you can argue over these next 3, I suppose, next 2, next 3. But for me, he's an unbelievable athlete, proper dual threat. He can do it with his arm. He can do it rushing as well. He's He's durable. He literally puts the Bills on his shoulders and just delivers season in, season out. I suppose my one slant on him would be that the turnovers can be a little bit high with him, but I just love a gunslinger. I love that he goes for it. So Alan would be number 3 for me.
I think my only argument against Alec, I mean, he's in there. For me, there's 4 QBs, top of the tree, absolute elite, head and shoulders above everybody else. The only reason for me that Allen is at the bottom of those 4 is he's had multiple opportunities to take that team where it needs to go, and they have failed. Not always on him. There is other things that come into the other variables. I get that, but ultimately he's the guy you look to pull your team through, and they've missed it in countless, 3-4 years now on the trot. That's the only reason he's out, but he's still in that elite band for me of those top 4 guys.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if you remember the golf event they had where it was like Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes, and Allen, and Tom Brady turns around to him and says, Devontae's left, Aaron, Tyreek's left, Mahomes. He says, someone's going to leave you, and that is the big hole in that offense now is Stephon Diggs, and how that makes Josh Allen look. Because again, as much as it almost falls on the receiver most of the time to say, oh, you're nothing without a really good quarterback, it'll be interesting to see, can he keep up the kind of firepower like Mahomes has done this season with almost no one to throw the ball to bar Travis Kelce. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for this season. But again, I agree with the majority of what you said there as well. And I think his durability is a big one as well. He's one of the main guys that's been around, throws himself, body on the line, and again, he suits up every week.
Just on that point though, that guy they drafted, his name's completely going out of my head right now. I've seen a few bits of kind of media stuff coming for him, and he seems to be a bit of a character. He has all that kind of that star talent about him, that attitude. I don't know, he's impressed me so far, so hopefully he can take it in the field as well.
Is it Coleman?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
Coleman.
Coleman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, let's move on then. Danzo, pick number 4.
Pick number 4 for me would have to be Lamar Jackson. He's, like I say, the 4th in that group of 4 at the top of the tree that I don't think anybody can really touch just now. MVP for last year, obviously. He's got all the tools, the legs, better than anybody else probably in that top 4. His throwing does kind of pull him back a wee bit, but he's still an elite QB for me and deserves to be in that top 4.
I think to your credit there, Danzo, his passing this season was unbelievable with the new offensive coordinator. It wasn't that they really opened up the passing game. Lost a big target in Mark Andrews for a number of weeks as well. So again, I think with the additions that they've added, I know they've lost some bodies as well. I think the Ravens could be really, really good this year, especially with Derrick Henry in there in the backfield as well. I think that's going to be interesting. John, you're in for a tough season, I think, in that division, to be honest.
Maybe that's the thing. Sorry, I know I always like to make this a Steelers podcast, but we've actually got quite a good divisional record. We actually do all right against the teams in our division. It's when we step outside it that we struggle. But it's a good point. Some brilliant quarterbacks in there.
I'll just go. This will be the first controversial bit then, because I've got him actually a bit lower than where he's been picked, and I had him even lower to start with, and I kind of topped myself back up into. He's just not shown that he can cut it in a playoff game for me yet. Like, he's had multiple opportunities against teams that they should be beating, and I want to trust the guy I've got. Like, during the regular season, as Danzo said, MVP, he's amazing. But like, if I need to pick someone to win me the most amount of Super Bowls, I just wouldn't have him as number 4 at the minute. But that's my own opinion.
I think that's a real fair point. What my challenge back to be would that be that the AFC runs through the Chiefs and Mahomes, doesn't it? And you've rightly mentioned that Burrow's the only one who can really sort of go, who's actually proven he can beat him. So I think that's last year the Ravens were unbelievable, and that was their downcoming, wasn't it? They come across the Chiefs and they just couldn't get over the line, despite being better actually in that game.
Yeah.
But it's a fair comment. I don't know how far I would drop him out of the top 4 personally, but
Yeah, I don't know about
Yeah,
massively, but certainly a couple of spots.
I've got him
Durability
quite
is
low
one thing
down on.
so unusual.
Sorry, listen, I've got him quite low down in mine as well. Again, maybe a wee bit
Without the
biased, right? But JK's point's spot on in my opinion. I think you look at Joe Burrows, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. If you look at those games that count, they can play high risk football and execute it. And I think where the Ravens fall short in those big games is they try to play high risk football. They try to go for that final dangerous pass or what have you to get them over the line, and he has came up short quite a few times. So I think it's a fair point.
I think if it's me and I'm drafting Lamar Jackson, and that I had him a little bit lower, but not to maybe the extent that JK had him. But I mean, again, last season to caveat that with they're literally inches away from that touchdown, and was it Snead that makes that tackle?
Yeah.
Like on the goal line, man, basically, and like it causes the fumble. But it's durability, isn't it, for that guy? Because a massive part of it's his game, and I always think, like, see if your quarterback's running, like, my heart's in my mouth all the time, like, because you see these injuries, like, and you know from experience, like, if your quarterback goes down, regardless of who you've got, it's almost 9 times out of 10 season over, isn't it? Unless you're losing Carson Wentz and you go to Nick Foles, but there's that aspect of it, like, the season's done. So durability and the amount of running that he does, and maybe Derek Henry will take a little bit of that off his plate, but it's such a big part of his game, isn't it? It's what makes him an MVP, because he gets bums off seats. But
yeah, I think this is the first example. Sorry, Lewis. I think this is the first example of, like, if this were who's the best quarterback at the minute, I'd probably have, like, Lamar Jackson maybe number 2. To be honest, like, he's so talented. But yeah, as you said, Smithy, this is about who do I want to draft in this position, which, yeah, that's the only things that would drop him down for me.
Yeah, and that is the whole point of the exercise, isn't it? We're not just drafting the top core QBs in order. It's taking everything into consideration, whether we would go forward with a franchise with these players or not. Okay, cool. Let's move on then. So pick number 5. And this is, I think, where it starts to get a bit interesting with this one. It's not as obvious, these picks, and of course we're going to Mr. Controversial over here with smug face on.
Listen, no secret.
Let's go pick number 5.
No secret. At this point, this is where my list starts to jump in and out of different phases of thinking. So I think the guys that we've had are the guys that you can win just now with and win for a few years. The guys that I'm going to pick now are the guys that I think you might not win next season with or the following season, but they're guys that are going to have longevity in the league. And you've seen what quarterback purgatory does to teams. Like, it is worse than being in quarterback hell, because you're jumping and jiving. You end up with a Gardner Minshew at £12 million a year, paying all these big stars money, and you're wasting the talent that they've got.
Come on, Lewis, spit it out. Here we go.
It's a toss up for two players, and I'm going to go with my own bias. I'm going to take Jordan Love at this spot.
Jordan Love at number 5.
Shock.
I'm going to take Jordan
Where
Love.
was he actually on your draft though? 1
No,
or 2?
genuinely, like I say, I kind of almost agreed with Danzo to some extent that there was a 3 guys that you couldn't come close to. And then after that, you need to start thinking a little bit differently about putting your franchise in a position to win. Maybe after Mahomes retires, maybe after that guy hangs up his boots. But Jordan Love, for me, again, I think what he's been faced with is a little bit different. First and foremost, like, having to come in and pick up from a legend, Hall of Famer, like a guy that's been there for how many seasons. It's hard enough in itself to sit and wait for 3 years, and although people might look at that as a benefit to him in terms of what he learned, he still have to sit there and not play your football and almost bide your time. And his season was phenomenal for a first year starter. If that was, for example, if you were to put him in coming out of the draft class this year or next year and they had that kind of season, it would be phenomenal. So again, for those reasons, that's a guy that after maybe Mahomes and whatnot, this is a guy that's going to put you in a position to win for a number of years. And again, starting to think about your dual threat, it's a guy that can offer you that as well.
Poor Jordan Love's having to sit for 3 years and then signs a $200 million contract. So we know it's Mahomes, Love. Now we've got that out of the way, Lewis. But I'll be honest with you, like when I done my list, and look, I suppose we can reveal our actual list towards the end of it, and when we've gone through this process. But I'm in the same frame of mind. Like this is the time in the order where you start thinking about either rookies or real, the younger talent out there to take a franchise forward over the more established sort of players. So Jordan Love's on my list, probably not as this high, but there's not many ahead of him if I'm being completely honest. So
agree with that.
Aside,
my only argument to Lewis would be you've got Jalen Hurts, who's on the same kind of money, exact same age, done it for more years. Why is he no up above him? Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of way we're playing in this argument, and I'm the exact same. These next 8 you could put anywhere and argue any of them, but at the same time you could put them there and say, that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? But it's just an argument to Lewis's on that. I see them very similar. The only downfall is Love hasn't got the experience that Hurts has now. But everything else seems to be either in good places, good contracts. It's just that experience for me. I think that Hurts takes over Love.
Give Jordan Love AJ Brown, and we'll see what happens with the stats.
It'd be interesting to see what happens with Hurts, actually, because I've got my own thoughts on that one. But any more thoughts on Jordan Love, boys, before we move on?
Move on. I don't want to listen to your haters anymore.
He's getting a bit touchy now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Giving out for weeks, all of a sudden he's getting
not
a bit
at
touchy.
Not at all. Let's go.
Come on, John. Who we got for
I really love this
6?
pick, by the way, because it's going to get wild now, isn't it? But
number 6, John, give it to us.
Joe Montana.
Big Ben.
I've gone for Justin Herbert.
Okay, cool.
In at this pick, and what I did in my draft order actually was I looked at win now and breakthrough season potential. And I think Herbert could have a breakthrough season. I think his biggest kind of challenge has been his ability to carry a team, particularly when they've not got the weapons in front of him or that the games aren't being set up well for them. But I think with the new manager, is it Jim Harbaugh? He's gone in, hasn't he? And I remember that a lot of talk about how they drafted well in terms of the improvements that they made in their offensive line. Maybe this is now Herbert's season where he won't be expected to carry them as much. He's had 5 years. Is this his 5th year, his 4th year in the league? 5th year? 5 years in the league, so he's experienced. And I think this could be one of these ones that break through this year. And he has a great season. So he was up there amongst it for me. And
no arguments for me, to be honest with you. I mean, I had him ahead of Love, to be fair. I do think he gets a bit of a hard rep. You do ban this. He's not able to get him over the line. It's not always just on a QB. I think Harbaugh going in there is going to be absolutely brilliant for him because it might be a run first team for a while, but he's got an absolute cannon on him. He can launch it all around the field. He doesn't turn the ball over. And just think if you've got a complementary run game, which maybe is plan A, and then you play action off the back of it and you've got absolutely launching them, he could have a really good season. So yeah, no arguments from me.
Yeah, same. I had him pretty high as well. Like last season, he definitely slowed in production. I think he had a few injuries, but kind of similar to Lewis's point about Josh Allen. Like the guy just plays through anything as well. Like he's always there. And like if you look at his stats on the first 3 years, like it's 4,500 passing yards, then it's 5,000 passing yards, then it's 4,700. Like 38 touchdowns. So the guy is unbelievably talented. And yeah, same as John said, I'm hoping that the new coach, the madman Harbaugh coming in, can like unlock that a bit for him. Because yeah, I think he's a special talent.
Am I the only guy that sees him going back away this year? I have him down at 13 in my draft.
Yeah.
I genuinely have him down there. And I can see the argument again. It's in this mix of arguments, but the best wide receiver he's thrown to this year is Josh Palmer, Lad McConkey, or DJ Chark. His running backs, now Harbaugh is a heavy run coach, so their throwing is either pre-planned to make the run look so good, or it's a risk move. Herbert's shown that those risk moves aren't all for him. Do you know what I mean? And I just think with Gus Edwards there, J.K. Dobbins, both injury prone, I just don't see them having a good year, full stop, the Chargers in general. That's why I've got him down a wee bit this year. Maybe I look a wee bit thinking I shouldn't be, but I just think this whole year is going to be a struggle for them from top to bottom.
Again, though, it's sorry, so you go.
No, sorry, I kind of agree to what Danny's saying. I think he's had talent on his roster in those years. I mean, Austin Eckler's been a stable running back. Keenan Allen, who Smithy, you're falling over yourself at the Bears. Like these are top talents around the NFL, and you can look at those guys. I think there's no question around the talent that Justin Herbert has, but I think we'll come on to this in a little bit more detail. But I think it's almost about getting the right system for the right quarterback, which makes some of these guys look better than others. For example, Jared Goff going to Detroit and then absolutely looking phenomenal again, whereas for times in LA he looked absolutely terrible when the system wasn't suiting him. So I think that can go either way. But again, Herbert's a guy that I really like and is phenomenally talented.
Yep.
They drafted, didn't they? I just had to Google their draft pick there. I'm not going to pretend I knew it off the top of my head. But they drafted a tackle, didn't they?
It was Joe. Yeah. Did they draft Lad McConkey as well?
Lad McConkey, that's the other.
Lad McConkey, number 34 pick. So two big additions to their offensive line.
Their offensive line will be absolutely monstrous, won't it? And that scheme
that
he will run, he's going to. I think he'll just suit Herbert. I think if you look at what he done at Michigan. With JJ McCarthy there, and then you go similar sort of scheme, and obviously it doesn't always translate from college to the NFL, etc. But you go and drop the arm talent of Justin Herbert in there as well. We'll wait and see. But this is why it's a really interesting debate, isn't it? We've got controversial. Someone's taking Herbert at 5, someone's dropping him down to 13. So no, it makes for good conversation, boys. But let's move on. So, Jaco, we're back round to yourself now, mate, and I think we are at, what, pick 7?
7?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
I am going to go next with CJ Stroud. So, again, similar to what Lewis has said, my list isn't quite as strategic as that. I'm kind of just basing off of, who do I think can be the best for me in 10 years, but he's 22 years old. So age is a huge thing here. Like, you've got a guy for, let's say, the next 10 years. I haven't saw in some time a proper rookie season.
Yeah.
You don't get to sit for 3 years and then pretend like he's a rookie. I think you know where that is, Lewis. So, for a team that wasn't supposed to be good, making the playoffs, like, he can do everything. He just seems to have galvanised that team, and similar to what I said about Joe Burrow, that he's got that swagger as well. It feels like a guy that I would want to lead my franchise alongside the ability that he clearly has in abundance. So, CJ Stroud for me.
Yeah, no arguments from me. Absolutely love it. I mean, I didn't one ahead of Love, mainly because of the contract situation.
Yeah, that was the
rookie
And I've literally wrote down next to both franchise changers for CJ Stroud and Jordan Love. So
I had him in at 5 purely for that reason. What JK's just said, he's come in there, absolutely revolutionised that franchise with his attitude, his play on the field, and you look at him and he's your guy for the next 10 years. He could be doing massive things.
Yeah.
John, any thoughts on the other thoughts?
Just amazing stats for a first season, and to JK's point in terms of how he turned that franchise around in one year by the looks of it, in terms of where they were and where they got to. I had him in at 5 as well, and also had Herbert in above him, so you can figure out who was further back. But there's 2 or 3 quarterbacks this year that I think are going to have massive years, that we could do this next year and go, if we're just rating the best quarterbacks, there'll be some surprises. But
no arguments for CJ Stroud. Absolutely insane talent. So we're back round to me. I can't be honest, this is where it started getting quite difficult for me. I drew up quite a few lists, and I've gone down the list and I've gone, right, is this player better than this player? Moved him up, moved him back down again. But I'm taking risks, boys. I'm taking risks.
Here we go.
And you know what's coming. You know what's coming, right? And let me just explain the reasons why. Everything you've just sort of said. Okay, so this guy's yet to actually take an NFL snap. But if we're just talking about what you've just spoken around in terms of franchise changes, this is, and then obviously you're taking a risk. This is what I would believe out of all the other quarterbacks that are available. I think this is where I would place him. He is the number 1 overall pick for a reason. Everything you hear from his scouting report is that his skills are transferable to the NFL. I've heard nothing about good things ever since he's been with the Bears. So I would take Caleb Williams. Rookie contract, 4 years. You can obviously build the rest of your roster around him. If you look at the other options, and I will argue these when we get round to them, we've either got huge contracts, we've got inconsistent play, we've got age to take into account, we've got injuries taken into account, we've got flashes but nothing major. And honestly, like if I was starting from afresh, then I would want to start properly from afresh and take the most available the best talent available, and I would believe that would be Williams.
I'm not going to argue. I went along the same kind of thought. I had him at 9, so it's not much.
Danzo knows ball.
I've got him in at 11. I definitely think
John knows a bit of ball as well.
He's up there, like in terms to all the points you made about the contract size, etc. But is Jalen Hurts not still on the table? Is he not still available?
Still on the table, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That would be the surprise for me. I get some of the other names that are there might be nearer the end or have bigger question marks over them, but I would be surprised that you would pick Williams ahead of Hurts.
It's the contract for me. Like he's obviously on a big contract. You've got the rookie contract, and that gives you so much flexibility. You look at what the Texans can do with CJ Stroud, and I'm not massively convinced by Hurts. I know he obviously went to the Super Bowl and stuff, but they had a regression last year. Somehow they were 10-1 and lost like the next sort of 5 games or whatever. But we'll come on to Hurts when we come to him. But I'm desperate to hear what Lewis has got to say for himself over it, because he's literally just
no. Listen, I've
disgust in his face when he's taking Jordan Love after Mahomes.
No. I've got Caleb Williams. He was 13th in my list. Whether that's unlucky 13 or not, we'll see how the season goes. Because, like you said, he's not thrown up ass yet. But I mean, the one thing that he's done that no other quarterback's done is after a loss, run in and jump into his mum's arms and start crying. But I mean, if that's something you want to take into consideration when it comes to picking a quarterback. No, I'm only joking. Look, there's a guy that's coming out with serious talent. Again, I think the way that the lists are built, there was an interesting point on Hard Knocks where they looked at quarterbacks taken in the first round and how many of them were busts and how many of them were successes. And there was probably 2 or 3 that I thought it's pretty kind calling those guys a success. It just goes to show you. And I mean, there's a guy that we're going to probably come on to talk about at some point, Trevor Lawrence. I don't know how far down people's lists these guys are. So, and I mean, Jordan, we had a full conversation about how excited we were to watch this guy's pro day, and it just hasn't translated to the NFL, and that's just the risk with rookie quarterbacks. It's just the risk. It's the only thing the only slight on him is where he is. I think again where he's been drafted to is going to massively help him in terms of the franchise is so needy for a new quarterback, and the kind of the foil that he's got around him. But obviously that's just the risk that you're taking. That you've explained that you're rolling the dice on, aren't you?
Absolutely, that's for me. You look at the rest of the quarterbacks on there, and you're just thinking, if you're a GM, you're going to start a franchise. Those ones have gone off the board already. You've got to take a swing. You've got to be brave if you to change a franchise. So okay, cool. Look, let's move on. We're back with Danzo with pick number 9.
So I'm slinging in Jalen Hurts here. I had him down as number 6 in my list. So I'd be getting him at 9. I think I'm getting a good deal. But yeah, I think he's got the talent. I know last year was a strange year. I think there was something that happened out with the on-field that affected the on-field, to be honest. It was such a drastic decline in how poor they actually were. There was something else in the background for me. So I think that talent's still there. I still think that ability to push that team forward and get to a Super Bowl again is still there. I've said before, I look at their roster and I just feel that they've got Super Bowl written all over them. So yeah, I'm in with Jalen Hurts in at 9.
Yeah, I mean, he's one ahead of this pick for me. I got one QB ahead of him, so no real arguments with that one, mate. To be fair, it was real strange what happened with the Eagles last year. They fell off the cliff in 10-1 and coming back off the Super Bowl appearance. So it'd be interesting to see whether they bounce back. Obviously, he's lost his centre, hasn't he? But we shall see, boys. But any other thoughts on Hurts?
I think to the point around about why he's maybe further down and the fact he dropped off, there was a lot of wee niggly injuries, wasn't there? Did they not have?
The shoulder thing as well. I think.
It's like those wee niggly injuries that probably are more impactful than what people think. It removes some of the edge without actually stopping them from playing a game. And some people would argue it's better to get a bigger injury and take 5 or 6 games out for a full rehab. But those wee niggly ones where you try and play through it can almost be more damaging. So I think that might have been what caused the drop off. But yeah, he was quite high up in my list. I had him in at number 4.
He's in a good scheme. He's got good talent around him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's one of those sort of guys you kind of think, well, if he didn't play for the Eagles and he played for, say, the Bears last season, like would he be taking them 10-1 after 11 games? Like I don't think he would. He's not a win because of type of guy, but he is where he is, isn't he? So yeah, cool. Any more thoughts on Hurts before we move on?
No.
Lewis, we're back to you then, my man.
So again, this is where I have 3 players that I'm literally really struggling to pick between. And this is when my mindset, after the quarterbacks that have all gone, this is when my mindset switches solely to, I'm a GM, I really need to keep my job, so I really need to have a successful season. So, I mean, there's 3 guys. Again, I'm struggling with bias here, boys. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to give too much away, right? But the 2 guys that I'm toying between are Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford. And this is where I think if you get the right team around either of those guys, like it's going to be insane. And I think I'm going to go with home advantage again. I think I'm going to take Rodgers simply because if you can get the guy, like you say, in the right place at the right time, keep him healthy, he can take that. I think he can take that Jets team to the Super Bowl this season.
Mental. You've picked a 40-year-old quarterback who's coming off of a toe in their Achilles to start your franchise or continue your franchise.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Fully appreciate that. Injuries. I mean, if you look at any of the guys that you're going to pick next, there isn't many that you're going to say that doesn't have had a significant injury. So
there's plenty. I tell you what, I've got plenty. I'll take over Rodgers, mate. Like, obviously, we'll not pick him. I'm just thinking, like, really, out of all, you're taking him to sort of start again. Obviously, he's Hall of Fame, mate. You forgot to mention he's a total prick as well. But honestly, like 40 years old, just come back off a season-ending injury, and like I don't know. I don't know if you. The brief wasn't 100%. To stay in your job for 12 months, mate. The brief was to sort of start a franchise, redraft in the order, and you're taking.
Completely understand.
Pick number
completely
10.
Understand what you're saying. I think this season you're going to see the best in him. He's so egotistical. That's his full thing about him is his ego.
We're not talking about just 1 year of football, are we? We're talking about a franchise.
I understand that, but if I need to win right now, I want 2 years. If I could take 2 Super Bowls, that suits me.
I'm going to back up my amigo here, to be honest, because I actually had Rodgers in at 11 on my mind. So it's one ahead, and it is purely the fact if you take out everybody we've already picked, and maybe a couple in between that you could argue over, if you look at any of the rest of the QBs, and if you go, I want somebody who I can take a punt on, and it is a risk with injuries, etc., and say the next 2 years, go and give me everything you've got. Get this team to where it needs to be. I'm going to Rodgers.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit in silence and pretend that I've got him in at 9 as well. There's only one person
as well.
Probably.
Listen, all I'm saying, boys, That's 60% of the podcast now that have agreed with me.
So sorry.
Where the fuck's Burnsy when we need him? Jesus.
I mean, Smithy, your comment earlier that Danzo and John no ball is complete fucking nonsense.
Yes.
So yeah, me and you, mate. Oh,
Last
like,
point on it. It's a win now situation that I'm taking this guy.
I mean, that weren't
Yeah.
the brief, but I like how you've this is part of the fun,
No,
right? You've interpreted what you wanted from the brief.
The brief was you're redrafting the quarterbacks in your situation. You're in a job and we're starting your franchise.
And
again.
you've gone, I'll take a 12-month win.
Look at Joe Shane's son shouting at him, you need to go and pay a quarterback because you need to win right now because you need to stay in the job. And that's what that guy can give you. That's what that guy can give
But
you.
he's not on the phone to the Jets trying to draft Rodgers, though, is he?
Well, no, because he was injured, wasn't he? But obviously the situation now is you've got a guy in there. If they get a good offensive line, they've probably got the second best running back. They've got a guy that can be a top 5 wide receiver with some decent quarterback play, and they can win it.
We're not talking about the Jets, though, are we? We're not.
Yeah.
That's the thing is we're not talking about you're drafting for the Jets.
I understand that, but if we're making an imaginary draft, if we've got an imaginary draft, right? If we've got an imaginary draft, then I'm going to surround Aaron Rodgers with a good offensive line and a top wide receiver.
Devontae Adams was my number 1 pick, and Rodgers in at number 2.
There you go. Exactly. That's the interpretation of this. That's why I said it's going to be good. Because there's guys that you can win right now with that are at the peak of their powers. There's the next crop of guys like your Jordan Love, your CJ Stroud, and then after that, like it's game managers.
Yeah. I mean, I said at the start of the draft that if we didn't put Mahomes in at 1, we'd lose all credibility. Now we've got Aaron Rodgers coming at 10. So I think on that bombshell, we'll just end the pod now, boys. It's been a good run. We've had fun. But okay, cool. Look, this is the fun part of the exercise, isn't it? So we've all got different views. I mean, I had Rodgers 25, I think, on my list.
Yeah.
Same.
Same.
It'd be interesting where we come out from there. But John, let's come back round to you, mate. Let's get the show on. Get the pod back under control, mate. Talk some sense.
I had Rodgers.
Don't take Stafford.
But I've got Brock Purdy next on my list. They actually had him quite high up. I had him at 8th pick because I thought last season was his breakthrough season, and he put up some really good stats. I know they had a very talented team around about him, but can't take away from him being a big part of that overall talented team. And I thought this will be his 3rd year in the NFL. He's learnt the game first season, broke through second season, got to a Super Bowl, and he's now pushing into his 3rd year. So I can't remember his contract situation, Danny. You're always...
He's still on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
So I didn't think he had a big contract. I also thought, from the whole point around about value for money, etc., that he was quite an attractive option in there. So yeah, went with Purdy.
Yeah. I mean, look, Purdy's on my list as well. Probably got a few more ahead of him personally. He gets a bad rep, didn't he, for being a game manager, and he's obviously playing in the superstar team, but he's still got to deliver.
100%.
He's been to the Super Bowl now. He does push the ball down the field. I'd probably argue again if you picked him up and put him in a different franchise, how would he perform? I'd probably argue that if Shanahan was going through this exercise, how many other QBs would he take over Purdy if he could swap any of them for him himself? But he's got to come up somewhere, and I don't think you're too far wrong with that, boys. What do you think?
I agree.
I had him at 10.
Sorry, on you go, mate.
No, sorry, Danzo. I completely agree. I had him at 10. The whole thing about him being in a good situation, and everyone talks about how it's the Shanahan effect, but you could argue that he has had quarterbacks who were sold as being better than what Brock Purdy is, and it's not worked. He had Jimmy G, whoever else was there, and it's not worked. And for the last 2 years, Brock Purdy's had a QB rating of 108 and 108.2. It's what more can a guy who's 24 years old, been to the Super Bowl, I don't really know what else he can do to prove that he's, let's say, a top 10, top 12 pick.
Completely agree, and that's what I was going to say. He's the reason he's only at 10 for me and not up where CJ Stroud, etc., could be is I believe he is reaching the top of his potential as we are right now.
Fair.
I don't think there's a great deal more to come from him. you can get in and do brilliant for the 49ers for the next 10 years and hit Super Bowls again, but I don't think you're going to see anything more from him than what he's already given. I think that's shown in where he was drafted in the first place. Do you know what I mean? The skills had to be improved, they had to be worked on, so I think we're at his ceiling right now, whereas CJ Stroud's ceiling could be humongous. We've seen his floor last year. Could be. You know what I mean? So that's the only reason he's down there. But bang it, I had him at 10, so I'm not going to argue with that at 11.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah,
I've got 11.
Fair points. Right, boys, just conscious of time. So what I'm going to do is we're going to wrap up where we're at now. Let's do one more full circle of round, and then we'll sort of park it there to carry on for the next part. But just sort of recap where we're at. We're at Mahomes, pick number 1, Burrow, Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Herbert, CJ Stroud, Williams, Hurts, Rodgers, Purdy, and JK. We're back to you, mate, with pick number 12.
Anyone got any top 10 left, sorry? In their top 10 list, not been picked yet?
My top 10.
I'm about to pick him.
Right, sorry. My 10's out. Now my top 10's out.
So the last guy I had in my top 10 that I'll go for is Trevor Lawrence. So I hear what Lewis is saying, and in reference to when we were talking about Caleb Williams, and he was a number 1 pick who came out as like the best prospect since Jesus Christ. But I look again, context is everything here. Like, he had a first season under Urban Meyer, which is basically -1 for me. Like, he's having to forget everything that's been taught to him, like, in an absolute shit show of an organisation when he was in charge. And I think the last 2 years, there has been, particularly, was it his 2022 season, where he hit form towards the end of that kind of season into the playoffs. And I think probably we'd all agree, everyone was like, all right, Trevor Lawrence is arriving now. So I think last season maybe didn't quite hit the heights of that. Again, he's dealing with some injuries, but to be honest, I put a lot of weight on the whole Urban Meyer like first season thing. I just don't think he's been set up for success. I think Doug Peterson's doing like a good thing to unlock his potential, because the talent's there. Like, the guy can do everything, so I think he would still be able to show it. And he's only 24 years old. Like, he's the same age as Purdy. He's younger than Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts, so he's still got time.
Yeah, I mean, I had him at 12, to be fair. Is that where we're at, 12, is it?
Yeah.
At 11.
Yep.
Yeah. So bang on, mate, for what I was saying. He's still got a lot to show, hasn't he, for it? But he's clearly talented. He's shown flashes. I kind of think they did support him an awful lot in that first year of Doug's year, and then last year, I know he's injured and stuff, so he's got a big year to have. But if you look at that draft class, he's the only one who's been paid, isn't he? The only one who's still with the same franchise as well. So that says a lot. But yeah, no arguments with Trevor there. But
no, I had him at 12 as well. So I right bang on mine. My only concern for him this year going forward in the team that he's in is he's going to struggle. It's much the same as Herbert. They've got a rookie wide receiver, Gabe Davis, and Christian Kirk, who's solid, but he's not a game changer really for you. I just think they're going to struggle throwing the ball in that team again this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's the big concern is it looked like he went back the way a wee bit last year, because he had the poor first season under poor management, but then felt like his stats dropped off a little bit last year, and maybe there's nothing in this for me. It's just a thing that you see, but I thought he looked like he was giving up a bit at times. So that young, fresh, new rookie quarterback attitude kind of started to look a little bit subdued, a little bit like he had the weight of the world on him, and sometimes that's where the regression can get worse and worse, can't it?
Do you know what I wish about with Trevor Lawrence? I just sometimes wish someone would like rock up his arse a little bit. He's just so like laid back and stuff. Like, have you seen his sort of like pre-huddles in the tunnel before they run out? Yeah, he's just got the enthusiasm of the slug, and he's just sort of like, he's going to have a great
That's the product of years.
And you're like, come on, man! Like, you need a bit about you, didn't you? Lewis,
that's the product of years of being told you're the best ever.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, true.
That's it. That is it.
Did you have any thoughts on Trevor there, Lewis? Or
I mean, I had him slightly after Herbert, so not massively. Again, that's like it's just a guy that's a quarterback in the NFL now. There's guys that excite me at quarterback positions, and there's guys that don't blow me away, and he's one of the guys that doesn't blow me away.
So back round to me for pick 13, and I'm taking Tua at pick 13. I did have him slightly above Trevor, and I'll be honest with you, I've always been a bit up and down with Tua. I've not always been 100% convinced on him, but you can't argue what he's done at Miami, particularly under Daniels the last sort of couple of years. I know he's got insane weapons and stuff, but they're exciting to watch. When they're all firing, the Dolphins, they are exciting to watch, and that's ultimately what we're here to do, is to watch exciting football and stuff. The criticism on is his turnovers can be bad, and if it doesn't go to plan, they struggle. He struggles a little bit, but when they're on form, man, they are like electric to watch, and I like that. I like that he can sling the ball around, and he probably has one of the best sort of anticipatory throws I've noticed from most of the QBs when I watch them. Like he knows exactly where his receiver's going to be, and he's launched that ball, and as soon as they turn around, it's in his hands. Like, and that's an incredible talent that he's taken from college. So yeah, for me, that's where I'll take Tua.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. I had him at 14, take him at 13. Yeah, I'm the same. When they're on fire, it's brilliant. It's like, it reminds me, it gives me the same feeling as, like, remember the Invincibles Arsenal? And just the way they played free-flowing football. Dolphins can be a bit like that at times when it works, and watching their games. But yeah, if they're not on it, they're majorly off it, and it's a tough watch. But yeah, I'd take him in there. It's not a drama for me.
Okay, cool. Any more thoughts on Tua before we hand over to Danzo?
The only thing I would say is, like, the concussion stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I had him quite low on my list. I think he was 18. Yeah, 18. Not too far away, but I just can't pick somebody that's got that many concussions and that many years.
The thing that talked him down on my list was he actually openly a couple of weeks ago came out and said that he was thinking about retiring after those concussions, and that gives you some insight into he's thinking for his health and whatnot. Another bad concussion could end his career. Another bad injury could really cut short what could be a great career. Obviously, he's been paid and they love him in Miami, and he looks as if he's done a lot of work in the off-season. I think there's a lot of chat about him learning to fall correctly and doing jiu-jitsu and putting on weight and stuff like that as well. Or has he got a bit leaner? I can't remember, but it's something to do with his weight. But openly coming out in that, and all the praise to him. If that's how he was feeling, then fair enough. And obviously we had the situation with Andrew Luck, and it was just injuries that can end a promising career. And that would be the only thing that had him lower on my list as well. Great quarterback. Wish he was a couple of inches taller, and probably suit him a bit better. But injuries is massive.
Yeah, weren't a problem for Rodgers though, was it? His injuries or his age, like.
I see you, the great ones can come back from it,
mate. I forgot where we were. Danzo, over to you, mate, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep, 14. And I'm surprised. This is the only guy that I had in my top 10 that hasn't been picked. And I'm kind of surprised. I had him ahead of Lawrence, Herbert, Rodgers, even though Rodgers was high.
I'm going to write them down because I think it's mine as well, right? And I'll show you if it is.
Aye.
I think
there is only one guy that you could. I mean, there's probably two, but this guy I think's far above the other guys, and it's Dak Prescott. I think, given no,
hell no,
he has to be. I mean, I get that he struggled. I get it's the Cowboys. I get they struggle in the playoffs, but his regular season stats are up there with Mahomes and Burrows, etc. He just needs to translate it over. Is he past that point of being able to do that? Quite possibly. He's not a number 14 pick for me. That he's ahead of other guys in there. I get there's restrictions on it, but he's definitely got to be a top 10 QB in this league.
Yeah, I mean, you literally pluck the words that I wrote here. So, what did I have for him? Prescott. So, he's obviously 31 years old, right? So, kind of that age. Unbelievable regular season. But then, for whatever reason, and it's not just him, it's the Cowboys, they fall apart in the off-season. And I just think that's something that, like, is that now ingrained in that guy's head? Like, is
That's
he?
the reason.
Yeah. Okay. But is that? Is that now ingrained in that guy's head as a mental block? That, like, if you draft him now, is he going to be unbelievable in the regular season and get to the postseason and for some reason have a little mental meltdown or whatever?
But then again, if I'm a franchise like the Panthers and I just need a regular season, I see the guy to take it 14 and get you unbelievable regular season stats, get you a playoff berth. You quite happy just dropping out of that one if you're the Panthers? Of course, yeah. You're
I had him at 15, so one above.
Yeah, man, 13.
I had him at 12.
I think that's harsh on Bryce Young. That's harsh on Bryce Young. I think the guy's
you've not seen my rating
23.
on Bryce Young yet.
Like, I know it wasn't perfect, but what kind of team was he surrounded by? Like, do you know what I mean? So I'll be interested in it. You only get that excuse so many times, but if it's your first season coming out, like you say, true rookie, we need to help those guys. But like I say, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Again, he's another one that's had these injuries, which I would probably get to when you're now thinking at 31. And I know you're going to throw the Rodgers thing at maybe being 40 and having an injury, but he's had some serious, like proper serious injuries in terms of proper bad leg breaks and stuff like that. And again, that's probably affected his game. But again, last season to caveat it with, and I know I feel as if my arse is trophy sitting in the fence here. Like, it's the best he's looked in the regular season in terms of like how well he managed the offense under Mike McCarthy. So I can see an argument for it, but again, I would probably avoid at that point.
I had him in at 12. He's definitely up there, but I think his regular season play creates a situation where he's over-promising and under-delivering when he gets into playoff games, and that takes the shine off him as a player because everyone thinks he's playing good. He's playing good football, and this guy, could this be the year he goes further into the off-season? But then they tend to fall at the first hurdle quite often, don't they? Even if they do get there.
Interesting one for the Cowboys this year. Maybe that's a conversation for another pod. But okay, I take it you're taking Bryce Young, are you, Lewis? Is that after your little comment there?
No.
Like, no.
And I know we've
coming out of your mouth now. Go on.
I know we've spoken about injuries, and this is a guy I'm quite surprised it's not been touched. So, again, I gave you that little insight into the kind of pockets of where I want to pick from, and I was quite surprised. I was hoping this guy would go a little bit higher, but at this point, this is where I would again gamble, like you say, take a risk on a guy. This is where I would take Anthony Richardson.
Interesting.
See, to be honest with you, I'm not a million miles away from you and the same kind of thought, but I've got a couple of guys in front of him.
There's a couple of guys in there, like I say, with guys where you could win now with, but again, 22 years of age, a guy that's got all the swagger. I think the Colts could have a good season sneakily. Like, there's not a lot of people talking about the Colts in terms of some of the pieces that they've added there. If they get some guys back in terms of like Jonathan Taylor, for example, it'd be a really interesting season for them. But like, he was electric his first, 2, 3, 4 games. I know they had his injuries and maybe they'll learn from that as well. But again, it's not a terrible injury that you hope it's going to affect him longer term. I know it kept him out for the season because they wanted to do the surgery and protect him. But they've had something real in terms of Andrew Luck there and how they kind of maybe didn't protect their quarterback and where it's left them over the last few years. But I would go Anthony Richardson at this point. That's where I would. My predict's weight enough to go and bite at Anthony Richardson.
I agree. The only thing that held me back from him, and I couldn't get it out of my head, is the injuries, right? And I get the injuries has been QBs who've picked up with worse injuries. The fact is, he had 6 games total last year, and he's had 2 injuries in 6 games. One of them was very minor. He came back, but then he's had that big one. And I get he could have been back, but that's kind of scary in your rookie season. 2 injuries in the first 6 games. That's seriously that could hamper his talent and potential for me, and that's what I was looking at there. And those injuries and how frequently they've happened so far, which is all we can go on, kind of worries me a bit.
Yeah, I think it's too big a risk to go that high up. To Danny's point as well, with the injuries and unproven nature of them, I just thought there's so many other players that wouldn't present just as big a risk, I don't think.
Yep.
I had him way down at 19th.
I think if you project what he produced in those games, though, like, it would be sensational. It would be like an unbelievable season if it projected the way it was going through those first 6 games. But like I say, it's where you're prepared to take the risk, because there's a risk with every quarterback. There's a risk with Rodgers. There's a risk with Williams and having never thrown a pass. there's a couple of guys later down the line who you know what you've got, and I just think sometimes you need to roll the dice and certain guys.
Yeah.
Lewis, I have to say, just when you couldn't say something as ridiculous as Rodgers, you go and say something like this. And totally redeem yourself, mate. I fucking love it. I had him at 14. I had him ahead. I had him ahead of Dak Prescott, because everything you said, mate. I think he's he's raw talent. All the traits, like he's an absolute tank, and he's stereotypically oversized as a quarterback. I think he could have like Cam Newton vibes, couldn't he? If he
I was
gets
just going to say
gets
that.
it right.
That's his ceiling.
Yeah, so
Can we draft Cam Newton? Because I would take him so high, even right now.
Yeah, no, so I love that pick, mate. So you've redeemed yourself almost a little bit. Well,
Listen, there's a way to GM things. There's a way to run your team. There's a way to run your team.
He's in full fantasy mode. Is Lewis, and he's got his mock drafts up on his wall. You can tell already.
I'll tell you what, Aaron Rodgers is nowhere near my pick for fantasy football. We just keep that in your mind from your drafting.
Right, John. Let's round it off with one more pick for this evening. Then with pick number 16.
Yeah, I had this pick at 11 in my draft. My list here, I had Jared Goff in at number 11. I think there's maybe a little bit of, I loved what he did to the Lions last year under Dan Campbell. I loved the story of the way that this guy was probably written off a little bit when he first went to the Lions, and he just rejuvenated his whole career, and I just loved the football that they played last year. It was just that, getting down to business and getting the work done. Just had that kind of grit about them as a team. And that's kind of created a little bit of affection for the guy in my eyes. I think he's a really, really good player. It looks like he's maybe questionable attitude at the Rams. Probably felt that he was, I think I spoke about this previous pod, a bit unloved. And then he's went to a franchise with a great coach who's brought him to a new level, and his natural talents came through. So he came in my list quite high up because of that.
What did you take him at again? On
11.
your list? 11.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what everyone else had Goff at, because I had him at 11.
I had 12.
16.
16. Lewis?
Yes, 11 as well. 11. No, he was one of the guys that I've had my list and then I've manipulated it as picks have went on. So he was a guy that I had ahead of Richardson, but as Richardson was still there, I've manipulated my list to take.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because he's 29 years of old. He's obviously been paid as well, but he is the prime example. If you put him in the right scheme with the right offensive coordinator, he can just do damage, can't he? And they were brilliant. And I hate the Lions, but they were really good last year. I mean, maybe criticism of him would be like if it breaks down and stuff, he can't offer anything else, can he? He's not like a dual threat. He's not going to scramble or anything at all. So it has to be perfect for him. And the Lions are always going to line at some sort of stage. But yeah, no arguments with that at all there, boys.
I think there would be an argument if he has another season like he did